Mr. Dean Ashton, one kettlebell warrior. Thank you for being here,
That,
good sir.
that's me. Thank you for having me, John. Really looking forward to speaking to you today. It's great to hear from you from Melbourne, my old hometown. So it's nice to have some contact with people from there.
Excellent. Now, mate, Dean, I reached out to you on Facebook. I saw your content, your kettlebell content, and you delved into your backstory a lot on Facebook. And I thought it was extremely compelling, and there are a lot of people could benefit from making that a longer format podcast conversation. And I reached out and got past the barrier of perhaps thinking I might have been a stalker, and here we are having a chat. So that's terrific. Dean, you've had a massive life rebuild through fitness and through now kettlebell training and coaching, but that would be an understatement. Perhaps in your own words, mate, share as much or as little as you want about what's got you to the point where you are now.
Well, I will give you the short version because it is a pretty long story to tell. But I actually used to be quite wealthy, John, and then in the global financial crisis, I lost my life savings, and I won't go into exactly how that happened, but that kind of drove me to bankruptcy, okay, and then also heavier alcoholic abuse. Now, I've been a heavy drinker my whole life, but I started drinking even more heavily. My previous career, before online fitness coaching and safety advisor, I was a tennis coach in Melbourne for over 21 years at Glenvale Tennis Club in Glen Waverley. During the in 2008, 2010, that time also the business was slowly, reducing in size. I wasn't getting as many clients as we used to. Sort of school sport wasn't as popular with other kids. And then what happened was, as my income slowly was dropping, and it led me into bankruptcy. Eventually, it also led me to divorce as well. So at 48 years of age, I needed to look for a career change. That was a long process, but I decided to go into oil and gas, and um, basically got a job out on the rigs at 48 years of age, which itself is unheard of. I'm sort of 10, 15, 20 years older than most starters out there. But basically, I was drinking heavily, and after divorce and bankruptcy, and starting again, more or less at 52 years of age, with absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean stone motherless, nothing, no investment property, no super, nothing. I started again, and I'm overweight. I'm an alcoholic. I'm overeating. So I'm at 52 and my life's a mess. And there sort of come a day too where I realized no one was coming to save me. So turning my life around didn't just happen in one moment. It happened in a series of steps along the way. And I started off by I'd always been doing some training, but then I was sort of heavily drinking and overeating. And anyway, after 52, I did lock in my training a little bit more, but I was still going back to alcohol and also comfort eating. And then basically one day at 55, pulled the trigger on my training and nutrition, okay, but not yet my drinking. Okay, I was still drinking, not heavily, but I was cutting it down a little bit. I eventually pulled the trigger on my drinking 1 year and 240 days ago, and that really turned the corner for me and made the full transformation possible. Um, so I'm going to say being a heavy drinker is the biggest mistake of my life, but then I'm also going to say giving it up has been the best thing. How I came about training with one kettlebell was like many guys. I love training, but I just hate going to the gym. And then I didn't also want to spend thousands of dollars on equipment. And then one of the things, like anybody does, I suppose during COVID as well, we go onto YouTube, we look for ideas to learn training and what we can do. And you sort of get overwhelmed with the amount of information that you can find online. And I sort of go, well, this is all just too complicated. I just got to simplify this down. So I did start just with the one kettlebell and start working out with that, and then building some workouts and programs basically off workouts that I found online. Um, and that's basically where that started, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. So, Dean, geez, that's a pretty big rebuild there in middle age. There's a lot to unpack there. Was there a defining moment? And look, I meet so many people, and I've been in this category, someone who trains a lot, functionally training well, and then they still drink. But was there a defining moment where
Yeah, there was a
a
couple
part of
along
you
the
had to
way, John.
die?
Yeah, there was a couple of along the way. And first, one thing I will add, I was like what you would call a functioning alcoholic. I was holding down a job, but away from work, my life was a mess. Okay, it was just a mess. And some of the decisions I made on alcohol were absolutely life changing and even life destroying. So yeah, there were a few moments along the way. There was even a time that few years ago where I basically did, and I sort of made a post about this. I looked in the mirror and I basically just looked at myself and I've gone, two things. Number one, no one is coming to save me or help. If this and I'm running out of time. I'm now in my 50s. You need to do something about it. Now, I do have a little bit of an obsessive personality, and now that can work for me and against me. And obviously it's been destructive for most of my life. I've got to turn this around. Okay. I don't want to just uh, fizzle away with nothing. I'm better than that. I know I can do better than that. And I need to start locking down all my habits. So as I said, I improved my training first, and then I need to improve my nutrition. My nutrition's just shit. Okay. And then with the combination of giving up alcohol and then really locking down my nutrition and then my training, okay. And then I started to see my body form into something that it never had before. I hadn't even achieved this shape in my 20s. Okay. I started to get to a weight and a feeling of going, this is unbelievable. I feel absolutely fantastic. And what I sort of say to guys in their 50s, if you want to, we use the term become the 2.0 version of yourself, or you want to level up, okay, the effort is truly worth it. Okay. It is like a new start at life. I feel like I've got a new lease on life and I'm starting again. And I've got that much energy. Every single part of my life improved. My chance to meet a a beautiful partner, which I have now, and chance to mold the perfect life came with, and it all started with fitness. It really did. It's, we call it the gateway drug. I feel like if you can get fit, everything else falls into shape. And, the more fucked up your life is, the better, the more fitness can influence just improving it.
Nothing feels like fit feels. That's a saying. I think, and I know personally that's absolutely true, but nothing feels like fit feels in the absence of alcohol, which I've been on that recent journey. It is an unbelievable feeling because when you aggregate all the factors, how you feel mentally, how you are physically, how you are with your emotional regulation, once you factor all those in and you add them up, the sum total of those is greater than how you're operating in your 20s or your 30s. If you were doing all those bad destructive habits, you're actually in your peak. It's like you're in your
Yep.
prime, that 2.0. You're actually in your prime in many
Yep.
respects.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely feel that. I'm 58 now, and I am in the best shape of my life. Now, one thing I will add, I'm not the strongest. Okay, so I do realize that as we age, that our maximum strength is probably has reduced a little bit,
Yeah.
um, uh, but I am in by far the best shape of my life, and it improved every other. facet of my life. So it's improved my sleeping. I used to have high blood pressure, so that's come down. That's under control now. Okay. My relationships, I'm a better husband. I'm a better father to our 4 kids. I'm present all the time. There's no hangovers. I'm leading by example. So, it's like people that I train, you know, wherever they're coming from, usually they're coming from, say, 25 to 30% body fat. I go, no, no, you train with me. I set the example. I'm the leader. I'm taking you with me every day. And one of the things through posting every day, when I started and I did realize how valuable it was to other people, I was getting so many DMs from people telling me how much my content was helping them, but they weren't comfortable sharing their experience online. And they said, like, many of the things that I was saying, they felt like I was talking directly to them. And personally, that just gave me so much satisfaction to know that what I was putting out there was helping other people.
No doubt about it, Dean. You definitely got relatability. When I saw the videos, that was why I was compelled to make contact to get into this conversation. Dean, was there a stage where you were transitioning out of alcohol use, you were still training, and then you gave it up completely, and you started to have flashbacks?
I remember the mistakes I made and the price I paid along the way. So I'm not going to ignore or turn my back on that or pretend it didn't happen.
Um,
Yeah. So as opposed to whether there's a special moment in time, uh, no, there's just, as I said, there's just a few along the way where, and then sometimes I do remember the mistakes. I really do. I've lost lifelong friendships from what I've said under the influence of alcohol. Okay. I've made just some of the most stupid decisions.
yeah. Well, I don't want to dwell on the rearview mirror too much. You're making amazing choices now and you're helping a lot of people. I think where I was coming from is I think it's natural at the start to look back on aspects and you get in your head about why that wasn't optimum. But yet here you are in the moment, living in the most positive lifestyle you can live, right? And you tend to overlook all of the good things you might have done along the way. You don't even factor them in your thinking. Like you don't factor in the time you got your kid to basketball training and you got them home
Yeah.
safely and you gave them some positive feedback, not on the day of, but the next day, and that helped framed their thinking. You don't think about those things, you just think about all the shit things that happen. And I think a trap we fall into when we move out of one life and into that 2.0 version, as you put it, is spending too much time looking back because it's natural to feel a bit of regret, but you can't change the past. You can only influence the future.
No, that's correct. I'm all about where I'm going from here. I still believe I'm going to be the best version of myself and bring the best version of myself into my 60s. That's something that really is important to me. One of the things that did improve, I will say, when I did stop drinking, which is really important, was, although it'll probably never fully fixes my short-term memory. Okay. And my memory loss was terrible when I was drinking, the amounts I was drinking. And I found that once I gave it up, probably within about a month, I did notice a little bit of my recall starting to improve. And now I'm nearly 2 years without a drink. That's improved dramatically. And that's something that gives me a lot of satisfaction. It gives me a lot of drive to never go back down that road of drinking again. So I really enjoyed that improvement.
Let's talk about the now, mate. You've
Yep.
used kettlebells front and center of your service offering. Lot to like
Yep.
about kettlebells, of course, right? It's one tool. It
Yep.
removes friction about your equipment because you've got one piece of equipment. You can do strength and cardio at the same time. It's functional, it's time efficient, it's joint friendly when done well, it's scalable, and of course, it's habit friendly if you keep doing it day in, day out. You're doing that, mate. You're helping other people along the way. Tell us about that and what that journey has been like.
Yeah, it's been great. So just to sort of inform you who I work with. Look, I work with men 50 plus and into their 60s to get lean and strong with one kettlebell. Okay. Now, a couple of things that I do believe with my training, because most of the clients I have are guys who are a fair bit overweight. Yeah, they're 25% body fat, even 30% body fat. So they've already got bad eating habits or bad training habits, and they're in pretty poor shape when they come to me. I introduce them to, I have a series of exercises called the Warrior Kickstarter, and they're 20-minute workouts. And they're basically 5 exercises where they complete as many reps as they can in a minute. So they're not counting reps and we're not counting weight. All right. But they give the guys a chance to sort of experience full body workout. Okay, for 20 minutes a day. Now, I also want people when they first start training with me to train every day. Now, I know a lot of fitness coaches will say, oh, guys only need to strength train 3 times a week. Maybe if you're doing heavier weights and heavier lifting, okay. But the problem with the guys who are training with me, they have bad habits already, and we need to break their habits and we need to break their daily routine. So I would rather see guys training 7 days a week for 20 minutes than training 3 days a week for 45 minutes, certainly at the start. Okay, because we want them to start breaking those habits. And I believe a habit needs to be repeated for, say, a minimum of 30 days before it becomes an automatic thing that you do in your life. So yeah, that's one of my philosophies with the guys that first start training with me, John.
So you're building those brand new neuro pathways, and you're building into that a more compelling reason, a more compelling activity than some of the older activities they were doing. So to that extent, training every day is valid. Do you manage that and guide them to train at a particular intensity so they can sustain that for 30 days?
Yeah, I do. So the Warrior Kickstarter workouts are very user friendly, and user can determine how hard they push themselves. And I recommend for most guys to start off with a 16 kg kettlebell, and we start off just with basic moves. Now, if somebody's poorly out of shape, okay, they can start off with a 12 or a 10 if they've really, you know, feel like they can't handle the 16. But if somebody's just want to invest in one kettlebell, use the 16. If they only buy the 10, they'll outgrow it too fast. So when you're doing timed workouts, the user can determine how many reps and then probably determine the intensity at the start. And then all my training is delivered through my personal app. And within the app, the guys can pause between each exercise.
So do you find then, because you're training them every day, that that gives you the opportunity to have a lot more touch points and conversations? Because as you've alluded to or been talking about, it's not just about what happens to the body, it's about the change in the head and the mental state, right? So if they're training 3 or 4 days a week, they don't get those other days to work on their mental focus. Whereas if you're training them
Yeah,
7 days, you can work on that.
yeah, that's correct. So the other thing I really push my clients to do is to train in the morning. So it sets the tone for the rest of the day. Okay. And so we want them to wake up early, okay, or wake up at the same time each day, okay, and then set the tone for the day, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Does, because you're getting that dopamine hit, the real one, the good one, the one that counts because you've done
Yeah.
the hard thing, which moves you through the entire day. And if you're doing it again the next day, you can get that dopamine hit again, the real one, the good one,
Yep.
and keep going and create momentum. It doesn't have to look amazing. The main factor is to be there every day. Consistency
Oh,
is
look,
about being a 10 out of 10 every day.
no,
It's a
no, no,
6.
no. Look, people waiting for a perfect time to start. Look, that time never comes. But one of the things training every day does do, tell this. See, most of my clients have some kind of problem with their nutrition. Either they're not eating the right foods or they're overeating. And when you train in the morning, you tend to make better food choices throughout the day. Okay. So it That's why we say the morning training leads on to improving the decisions made later in the day, which is what I'm talking about with the nutrition side of it. Because obviously, when we're training and we have people that are looking to go on that weight loss journey and um, improve their physique, we want to get them to that warrior physique. We only have two triggers to pull. Okay. And those triggers are energy expenditure, which is training and cardio, and then calorie intake. All right. So one of the things that I like to do is when we start off, we want to go as easy. We want to basically start losing weight with as least effort as possible. Yeah. We don't want to pull the trigger too hard. So I don't have any high intensity cardio to start off with. Okay. We don't want guys pounding their joints. We don't want them out running or doing something. Um, that can all come later. If that's a consideration when, you start getting down to sort of the oh, 12, 15% body fat.
Yeah. Sounds like you've got a really sound and solid system and program there for guys over 50 wanting to make life changes. If someone needed to hear a sentence today or a statement of hope, what might that be, you think, for you to say to them?
To believe anything is possible. And then I'll also add this. We only get one crack at this, John. There's no go around. Yeah. Life, we've got one shot at it. Okay. And, I want people that train with me to be true believers that they can do it. I can do it. I can come back from where I've come from. Anyone can do it.
So nicely put. Thank you, Dean. Dean, are you finding now that in this stage of your life that it's been worthwhile or it's lifted you to have a couple of purposes much higher than yourself, much bigger than one individual? So now you've got the two spheres as I can see it through the conversation. So you've got your family, so your wife and kids, and you've also got the people that you help and guide every day. So they're two very big purposes in life. Do you find that lifts you and kind of buoys you up?
Oh, absolutely. I get so much satisfaction um, from, first of all, I know my kids look at me and know that I'm setting an example. I'm not waking up hungover every morning. They see me get up, they see me training, leading a healthy lifestyle. And then for my clients, taking them to the body shape that they've only dreamed of. But then it's also the people who aren't paying me for coaching, the people that send me DMs all the time. Um, I read every one of them, and it brings me so much pleasure to know that I'm helping people who are probably uncomfortable to share online about their own personal situation. So yeah, no, it gives me so much pleasure and makes me feel like what I'm doing and what I've achieved is quite special.
Congratulations, Dean. I think yours is an amazing story of resilience and transformation. And I sincerely hope that you get to continue the good work that you're putting out to the world and to the universe. We can all benefit from it. So thank you for sharing all that you shared with us today. How can people find you, Dean?
Okay, so you can find me One Kettlebell Warrior. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook under Dean Ashton and One Kettlebell Warrior. I have my own app. So yeah, just message me through any one of those platforms, guys, and I'm happy to hear from anybody. I'm a one-man show, so people that have any interest in one-to-one coaching with me, they get me, okay, and I interact with everybody. I also have a very low client intake each month. So the maximum amount of clients I take on each month is 5. So you can be assured that the quality of coaching is going to be maintained throughout your program. Okay. Not to knock any of the big influencers out there, but I'm not out there trying to coach, 600 people a month.
Dean, good sir. I appreciate you. We appreciate everything you're bringing to this world. And thanks for being on the podcast today.
No worries. Thanks very much, John.